Welcome to the School Breakfast Training module presented by the Maine Department of Education Child Nutrition Programs. This presentation will cover meal pattern, crediting, and special pre-K requirements, as well as the general program requirements for the breakfast program. Here are 5 things to keep in mind when planning your breakfast menu. First, the breakfast meal pattern is made up of 3 food components, also known as food groups. Second, you must offer at least 4 food items from the 3 food components. Third, the fruit component requires at least 1 cup of fruit offered daily to all age and grade groups. Fourth, the quantity of grains offered to students over the week varies by the student age and grade group. And fifth, full-strength juice is limited to no more than half of the weekly offering of the fruit component. The meal pattern is developed around grade groupings. These grade groupings are kindergarten through 5th, grades 6th through 8th, and 9 through 12. Different grade groupings have different daily or weekly quantity requirements for food component offerings. When serving 2 of these grade groups at the same time, the menu must be planned around the older grade group to prevent any insufficiencies. Here is a table outlining the breakfast meal pattern. The required food components for breakfast are milk, fruit, and grain. It is optional for food service to provide a meat alternate at breakfast. Each component has a required daily minimum offering and weekly minimum offering. As you can see, requirements are similar across grade groups with the exception of the weekly offering for grains. Now we will go more in depth on the requirement for each of these food components individually. The first component we are going to talk about is milk. The required daily offering is 1 cup and 5 cups over the course of the week. Milk is a standalone meal component and cannot be substituted with any other dairy. You are required to offer a variety of milk with both breakfast and lunch. This means offering 2 different flavors or fat percentages. The allowable types of milk that can be offered are low-fat or fat-free unflavored, low-fat or fat-free flavored. Lactate-treated milk is also an option. If flavored milk is offered, unflavored or white milk must also be offered with it. To provide a variety, your offerings could be white milk with 2 different fat percentages, or flavored and unflavored milk with the same fat percentage, or, that's it. Next is the fruit component. Vegetables may also be offered in place of fruit. The required daily offering for fruit is 1 cup for all grade groups and 5 cups over the course of the week. Students must be offered 1 cup of fruit, but are only required to take half a cup with their meal. All breakfast meals must include at least a half a cup serving of fruit or vegetable to be reimbursable. Optional fruit offerings are 100% fruit or vegetable juice, fresh whole fruit, canned fruit packed in light syrup or water, and dried fruits, where dried fruit will credit as twice the volume. So a 1/4 cup serving will credit as a half a cup of fruit. It's always important to know the serving size equivalents for each of the items you are offering. Often, whole fruits and vegetables are mistaken for a full cup serving for just 1 item. If, for example, apples are your only fruit offering for breakfast, students should be allowed to take 2, and 2 should also be referenced on your production record as the full serving size amount offered. Best practice is to offer a variety of whole fruit every day and not limit the serving amount to students. Remember, students must be offered 1 cup but are only required to take half. Juice can only make up 50% of the 5-cup offering of fruit for the week. Common practice is to offer a variety of fruit alongside of juice, not to exceed the 50% offering. Remember, if juice is your only offering of fruit for the day, students must be allowed to take 2 containers where 1 container is often only a half a cup serving. Grain items offered must be whole grain rich. All grade groups must be offered at least 1 ounce of grain daily, but the weekly amount varies by grade group. For high school or grades 9 through 12, you must offer a total of 9 ounces over the course of the week. For grades 6 to 8, it's 8 ounces, and grades kindergarten through 5th, it's 7 ounces. Common practice is to offer at least 2 ounces each day, no matter the age grouping, to avoid insufficiencies. If 2 or more grade groupings are combined during meal service, you must follow the meal pattern for the older grade group. The amount of grain in an item is determined using ounce equivalents. Items like bread, bagels, and English muffins credit ounce for ounce. But because items have ingredients other than grains that make up their total weight, you may have to serve a larger portion of a certain grain item in order to meet a 1 ounce grain equivalent. For example, a 1 ounce muffin will only credit as half the ounce equivalent because there are other ingredients that make up for its total weight. Offering a meat or meat alternate is optional at breakfast. Meat alternates like yogurt or eggs can credit towards the grain component of breakfast if it is offered in addition to a 1 ounce grain item. Meat alternate items also use ounce equivalents like grain items do, where a 1 ounce equivalent serving is not credited for 1 ounce. For example of this, a 4 ounce serving of yogurt would only give you a 1 ounce equivalent of meat alternate. A 4 ounce yogurt served with a slice of toast will equal a 2 ounce serving of grain. Because remember, meat alternate, when served with a grain, will help you credit towards your weekly grain requirement. One serving size equivalent for each food component is called a food item. To be a reimbursable meal at breakfast, a student must be offered 4 items from the 3 food components, or 1 additional item from the 3 components to make 4. Here you can actually see the weight or measure of an item, the serving size equivalent, and the item equivalent. For example, a 2 ounce bagel is a 2 ounce grain equivalent and will equal 2 items. For milk, a 1 cup serving of milk equals 1 breakfast item. Because a muffin has less grain by weight, a 1 ounce muffin equals half an ounce equivalent and will equal half an item. Here, either the muffin would need to be offered with an additional grain item or 2 muffins would need to be served. Maine DOE Child Nutrition has additional trainings and resources to help you with crediting on individual food items for ounce equivalents. Some examples of food items or serving size equivalents are shown here. 1 slice of toast equals 1 ounce grain or 1 item. 2 of them together will give you 2 items. Larger foods can count as more than 1 item. For instance, a 2-ounce bagel will count as 2 items. A 3-ounce bagel will count as 3 items. Combination foods can also count as more than 1 item. For example, this ham, egg, and cheese sandwich on an English muffin can credit as 4 food items. The English muffin would credit as a 2-ounce grain, and the ham, egg, and cheese will credit as a 2-ounce meat alternate, giving you 4 ounces of grain in 1 serving. Combination foods, or serving a meat alternate in addition to a grain item, can easily help you meet your weekly grain requirement. Here's another example of how a food can count as multiple items. Remember, because students are allowed to take a minimum of a half a cup of fruit, a half a cup of fruit will equal 1 item. 4 ounces of yogurt, as we covered before, will count as 1 item. And food items like breakfast pizza will often count as a grain item and a meat alternate item, giving you 2 items. So a breakfast pizza, along with a serving of milk and fruit, would be a complete breakfast offering. Here we have an example of a planned menu. 1 cup of milk, 1 ounce equivalent of cereal, 1 ounce equivalent of toast, half a cup of fruit with an applesauce, and another half a cup of fruit with juice would give you a total offering of 2 ounces of grain, 1 cup of fruit, and 1 cup of milk, giving you 4 food items from the 3 components. Here is another planned menu where a student would select 1 cup of milk, a 4-ounce cup of yogurt that counts as a 1-ounce grain, a whole grain bagel that is 2 ounces, a half a cup of fruit, and a half a cup of juice. This offering would give you 3 ounces of grain, 1 cup of fruit, 1 cup of milk, giving you 5 food items. Any food served in your program that is not credible towards the meal pattern is considered an added expense. Items like cream cheese or bacon do not credit towards the meat alternate component. And most fruit spreads or jams will not credit towards the fruit component either. Best practice is to limit the amount of non-creditable foods offered to students in your programs. There are additional requirements applied to pre-K when a pre-K class eats separately from the other grade groups. This is also known as not being commingled. The additional meal pattern restrictions are that cereal can contain no more than 6 grams of sugar per ounce. Yogurt can contain no more than 23 grams of sugar per 6 ounces. Grain-based desserts like cereal bars, granola bars, sweet rolls, toaster pastries, and are not allowed to be served as a part of a reimbursable meal. And as I mentioned before with milk, for pre-K students that are not commingled, only unflavored or white milk can be offered. Posted menu signage is required for both breakfast and lunch, and it should display the allowable choices for students to take in order to receive a reimbursable meal. It must also indicate the requirement to take a serving of fruit or vegetable. Signage should provide a clear message to students that will help them avoid problems at the POS system or point of service system. Signage should be simple and be clearly and quickly understood by students. When offer versus serve is not implemented in your program, a printed menu posted at or near the beginning of the service line is sufficient signage. Here is an example of menu signage that clearly shows what a student is allowed to take to build a reimbursable meal. It reads, choose one type of milk, choose one or two fruits, choose one of the following: 2 servings of cereal, 2 servings of toast, or 1 serving of cereal and 1 serving of toast. This is a 4-item offering. Students are required to have access to water during meal service, whether it's from a water fountain or a pitcher with cups placed out at meal service. In whatever manner water is offered, it is not a part of a reimbursable meal, and students are not required to take water, but it must always be available during service. Often there isn't a designated period in the morning for students to eat breakfast. Instead, breakfast is often offered as students are getting off the bus and before heading to class. To increase participation, some schools offer breakfast in alternative serving locations, like a breakfast cart near the front door or the hallway where a student can grab a meal and eat in class, or where breakfast is served in the classroom or delivered to the classroom. There is also second chance breakfast, where breakfast is offered a second time in the morning between first and second period as another means for students to receive a breakfast. Legislation in Maine was passed in 2020 to address student hunger. For public schools, where 50% or more of the enrolled students qualify for free reduced meals during the preceding school year, they must operate an alternative delivery service that provides breakfast after the start of the school day. High school or schools with only grades 9 through 12 are exempt from this legislation, as well as those schools that have over 70% free reduced participation in their breakfast program from the previous year. A school administrative unit may opt out of the alternative breakfast delivery service if the governing board of the school administration unit holds a public hearing. The goal of this legislation is to make sure that all students have access to breakfast and to increase participation of the free and reduced eligible children in your program by 10% each year. Thank you for joining. This concludes our breakfast training module. For more resources on breakfast and on the other child nutrition programs, please visit our webpage. Thank you.